The Tennessee Titans absolutely cannot draft an edge rusher in the first round. I'll explain why on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Tennessee Titans absolutely cannot take an edge rusher in the first round, but they absolutely do need to take an edge rusher multiple times in this draft. I'm going to talk about the guys at the top of the board, the guys in the mid rounds, and some projects on day 3. Before we get into it, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. We are in the midst of the 2024 Locked On Titans NFL Draft Preview Series. We have completed the entire offensive side of the ball. Go back and check those episodes out if you missed them. I know my everydayers did not, but now it's time to get defensive. So we're going to dive into the edge rushing class. Let's get it. Number 1, Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner is the top edge rusher in this draft class. 6'2", 247 pounds, out of Alabama, only 21 years old. He's got 34-inch arms, so great length, great explosion, good speed. He's a great athlete. He also plays with great motor as well. So getting a guy who plays hard with all that athleticism, good pop in his hands, but he's a bit thin, doesn't really have the bend and the flexibility. I don't know if that's a word, but I know you guys know what I mean. Needs to work on his hand technique, missed some tackles. Look, at the end of the day, none of the edge rushers at the top, Luetu Latu, 6'4", 259 out of UCLA, great hands, got great pass rush moves, also plays with good motor, an explosive first step. He does have some bend. He has some versatility to cover as well, but he's got the medical issue with the neck. He didn't play football for 2 years because of a medical issue. Doesn't have great power, not long arms, didn't play well against the best competition. And then you have Jared Verse from Florida State, 6'3", 254. He's 23 years old with 33-inch arms. Yes, he's got a solid frame, does well with speed to power, plays with violent hands, but doesn't have bend, doesn't have that length. He's an older prospect, inconsistent against the run. At the end of the day, none of these edge rushers, none of them are good enough prospects for the Tennessee Titans to pass on the offensive tackles and the wide receivers available. There's just no way. You cannot take Dallas Turner at 7. Even if you trade back, you should not be taking one of these edge rushers. When you have Joe Alt, Fashanu, Latham, Fuaga, like Fatanu even, or Roma Dunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Donai Mitchell. Like, there's no way that these 3 top edge rushers are good enough to pass on those positions of need. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So anybody talking about the Titans taking edge at 7 or in the first round period, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, you start to look down the board at pick number 38. That is really where edge rusher comes into focus for me with the Tennessee Titans. I am fully on board with the Titans taking an edge rusher in the second round, whether it be at 38 or whether there's a trade back in the second round and the Titans get back to somewhere between 40 and 60. I would love to take an edge rusher there. And the guys who could potentially be there, number 1 on the list, Darius Robinson from Mizzou. Now, Robinson was invited to the combine or invited to the draft. He's expecting to be a first-round pick, and I think he probably will be. But if for some reason that he's there at 38, the Titans should run to the podium. 6'5", 285 pounds, only 22 years old, 34.5-inch arms. I mean, he's got elite size, length, frame for a defensive lineman and an edge rusher. He's a versatile guy who can play on the inside. He started as a defensive tackle in college before moving out to edge his last year in college. So he's got that versatility. He's got great pass rush moves, bull rush, swim move, club move, a cross chop. He's got flexibility to bend around the edge as well. Look, his testing agility numbers were terrible. They were pathetic. And sometimes he can miss on his hand strikes. And if he does, he's not going to win. He doesn't have elite speed and he's missed some tackles. But at the end of the day, a guy with that inside-outside versatility, those pass rush moves, that relentlessness and motor, he compares to like a Cam Jordan, a Danico Autry type guy. It would be an absolute perfect fit for the Titans. But again, I don't think that he'll be there at 38. Someone who we haven't talked about a lot, who I think makes sense for the Titans, is Chop Robinson from Penn State. 6'2", 254 pounds, 32-inch arms. He's only 21 years old. He has elite first-step explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. He does have good bend. He's able to dip his shoulder underneath offensive linemen. He forced 3 forced fumbles, so he's a guy with ball production. And he is physical in run defense. He is willing to play against the run. The problem is, most of his production came in a couple of games. It's not like he was productive throughout a whole season. When he gets contact on his rush, it can stop him because he's not a very big guy. Again, 6'2", 250 with only 32.5-inch arms. So he doesn't have the length or the size that you would necessarily want. Doesn't have polished pass rush moves either. He wins with speed and only speed. So he needs to add weight at the next level. He needs to develop more pass rush moves and have more technique with his hands. But he can come in and be a third pass rusher for the Titans. You kick Arden Key inside to play that Danico Autry role on third downs and passing situations, okay? You do that, and then you bring in Chop Robinson as a designated pass rusher on third downs. Let him rotate in, and that will give him time to develop those pass rush moves, to put more weight on his body. He's only 21, so he can definitely get bigger even though he's thin right now. So Chop Robinson is a guy who, again, like Darius Robinson, is expected to go in the first round. But if either of those guys are there at 38, I think it makes a ton of sense for the Titans to take those guys. Now, a guy who should be there at 38, who I have mock drafted a ton for the Titans, is Chris Braswell from Alabama. 6'3", 250 pounds, 33.25-inch arms. He's only 22.5 years old. He has a great cross chop move where he's chopping the hands across the body of the offensive lineman to knock him away and move forward up the field. He has good bend. He's very good in run defense on the edge. Very good. He's got a good speed to power move that you blast off the line of scrimmage and you get in the offensive tackle's chest and you bowl him over. He's good at shedding blocks, so good at shedding blocks with his hands and knocking the hands away of the offensive lineman in run defense. He's versatile as well. Braswell has the ability to drop back in coverage. And I have talked about this quite a bit. But I think in this new defense under Denard Wilson, the Titans are going to do a ton of simulated pressures where they bring an inside linebacker up the middle on a blitz and drop a defensive end into coverage. They bring a slot cornerback on a blitz and drop an outside linebacker into coverage. Like Harold Landry, Chris Braswell has the ability to be fluid in his drops and play in zone coverage. So I think that's something important for the Titans' defensive scheme. So Braswell is a perfect fit for me in the second round for the Titans. The last guy that I want to talk about here, though, is Marshawn Kneeland. All right, Marshawn Kneeland is out of Western Michigan, 6'3", 267, 34.5-inch arms. So great length. He's 22, almost 23 years old, though, but he's got an ideal build for a defensive lineman and edge rusher. He drives with his legs, great lower body power. He plays with incredible motor as well. The guy is always running hot, good in run defense. He's got great vision, too. He keeps his eyes on the running back, keeps his eyes on the quarterback, so he's never out of position or caught off guard. He also, even for a guy his size at 267, heavier than all the guys that we've talked about except Darius Robinson so far, he has the ability to drop back in zone coverage, and he looks agile when he does it as well. Now, he played in the MAC, the Mid-American Conference. The competition was not the best. He doesn't have great bend. He's got to work on his hands and having better technique. And he didn't have elite production also. But when you have a guy with that size, that frame, that motor, that vision, I think it would be a very nice fit for the Tennessee Titans in the second round if they trade back a little bit from 38. I think Braswell and Kneeland are guys who, if you trade back, would make a ton of sense. But if the Titans don't take an edge rusher with their second round pick, there are still a ton of options on day 2 for them. Let's say they trade back, get a third round pick, and we're going to go over those options now. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you find professionals to hire that you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, continuing our 2024 Locked On Titans NFL Draft Preview Series. We're finally on to the defensive side of the ball, and we are talking about edge rusher, which I think is one of the Tennessee Titans' top 3 needs as a team. We have offensive tackle, we have edge rusher, and we have wide receiver. Those are my top 3 needs for the Tennessee Titans, so I'm spending a full day here on the edge position, just like I did with wide receiver and just like I did with offensive tackle. We talked about the top guys on the board, second round and first round options. Now I want to move into third round options, maybe late second round options if they get drafted a little bit higher. Before I do, thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Want to remind you guys that 7 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday night, the Locked On NFL mock draft goes live. That's where each host for each show makes a pick for their team. So I'm going to be picking for the Tennessee Titans with all the other Locked On NFL hosts. It is my favorite thing that we do here at Locked On. And again, going live 7 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday night. It's going to be on Locked On Sports Today, the 24/7 streaming channel that's on YouTube and also free on Amazon Fire TV. So Locked On Sports Today, 24/7. Check that out Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I will be making my pick for the Tennessee Titans. But with that being said, diving into the rest of this class, Austin Booker is the next guy we got to talk about out of Kansas. And remember, Scott Fuchs is now the assistant offensive line coach for the Tennessee Titans. He should have some good intel on Austin Booker. But Booker is 6'4", 240 pounds. That's the lightest guy that we've talked about so far. He's got 33.8-inch arms, though, so long arms. He's only 21 years old. He's got great length. He is an exceptional athlete as well. Good inside moves, so he can use that speed to widen out offensive tackles and then make a good inside move to get to the quarterback. Plays with great motor as well, which is very important for me with pass rushers. You can never give up in pass rushing. You have to continuously work. Good in run defense, has good speed to power, and he can generate a lot of power with that speed. Good range with that speed as well to track down ball carriers, or if the quarterback is running out of the pocket, he can track them down. Very good with his hands, and he was productive in college as well. But he does only have 1 year of true experience. He was productive, but it's only 1 year of experience, and he may be long with long arms, but he is thin at 240. Doesn't have great bend. For a guy his size, you would expect better bend. Needs to work on a secondary rush plan, like after his first move doesn't work. What's he going to do next? And he missed some tackles. But I think a lot of that stuff that we're talking about is about his strength. So if you get him in, like we talked about with Chop Robinson, an athletic guy, Booker has better length, though. You let him put some weight on his frame, and you might have yourself a stud in the mid-rounds in year 2 or 3. So Austin Booker makes a ton of sense if the Titans trade back maybe into the late second round, but third round would make a lot more sense if the Titans do find a way to pick up a third round pick. Another guy is Braylon Trice out of Washington, 6'3", 259 pounds. So a much bigger guy, much thicker guy. Only 32.5-inch arms, though. And he's 23 years old already. This is a very old draft class. I talked about that on yesterday's show. My everydayers will remember, but a lot of older prospects here. But incredibly productive for Braylon Trice. He had 80 pressures last year for Washington. 80. Now, their opponents were down a lot because Washington scored so much, so it gave ample opportunity for him to pass rush, but 80 pressures, I don't care how you got him. That's impressive. He's got size, great strength, power in his hands, plays with great motor. His engine is always running hot, and he's able to drive offensive linemen back off the line of scrimmage. So all of that is important, but doesn't have great bend and agility, needs to play with better hand technique, which can be improved at the next level. With that size and that strength, he doesn't have anywhere near the range of a guy like Austin Booker, who we just talked about. Like, he's not going to be tracking down running backs as they bounce outside, or these scrambling quarterbacks. He's going to have trouble with that. And at the end of the day, at Washington, he didn't face a ton of great competition in terms of offensive tackle play. So is he going to be able to use that power as effectively at the next level? It's worth wondering. So the next guy that we're going to talk about is Jonah Ellis out of Utah, 6'2", 248 pounds, 33-inch arms. He's only 21 years old, so a younger prospect. His dad was actually the defensive line coach at Utah, and you could tell that he is a coach's son. He has a great rush plan. He really understands how to set up offensive tackles, how to change his plan throughout the game, plays with good bend, good dip. He's able to dip that inside shoulder and get around offensive tackles. He also plays with motor. Again, coach's son. He plays hard all the time, and he's got some good punch power at times. He's able to really jab that hand into offensive linemen. But the problem is he's thin. All right. And when you're thin like that, your speed to power moves are going to be affected, because you just can't generate the power, even if you generate the speed, because you're so thin and don't have the muscle mass. The competition at Utah that he faced, again, another guy like Braylon Trice, just didn't see a lot of top-tier offensive tackle play, and he just needs to be more violent with his hands. He's got power in the punch, but he's got to be more violent with continuing his hand usage throughout the rep. I think that Ellis makes a lot of sense. I think with that bend and that dip and that thin frame and him being a younger guy at 21, an NFL team is really going to like him and say, hey, we'll put strength on him. We'll teach him hand technique. We'll teach him how to use that speed to power, but we're taking this guy with this bend and this dip in this age, in this youth, and a coach's son who you know is going to have high football character. So Braylon Trice can make some sense. But out of all these guys, my favorite guy is Muhammad Kamara. All right. Kamara is out of Colorado State, 6'1", 248 pounds, 32-inch arms, but he's 25 years old. All right. He's got incredible experience. He's 25 years old. He's been in college forever. Okay. So great experience, but he's also really explosive off the snap. Like, this guy is bursting out of his stance when the ball is snapped. Great with his hand technique. He's an older guy, and he is polished. Great pass rush moves. Plays with great motor as well. And look, he's a short guy. Shout out Short Kings. I mean, I have a hard time calling him short when he's 6'1", but I guess in the NFL sphere, that is short for a defensive lineman. But because of that, taller offensive tackles have a hard time reaching him. They have a hard time getting to him. So he's able to stay low and stay away from the hands of the offensive lineman. Look, he doesn't have great length. Again, short arms, 32 inches. His age, he's 25. He is who he is at this point. You're not going to get, you're not going to get much more in terms of, like, let me say, potential. Like, it's not like he's going to grow into a much better player than he is right now. He's 25. He is who he is. But who he is right now is someone who can be productive right away. And I think because of the age, because of the length, he's going to drop until about the 4th round. And if the Titans could pick him up at 106, I think he's got like some Justin Matabike potential. So I really like Muhammad Kamara. I understand the downsides to Muhammad Kamara, but I think with where the Titans are at right now with their depth on the defensive line, you get a guy like that who can step in right away and make plays. I think that would be incredibly important. The last guy that I want to mention in this grouping is Adisa Isaac from Penn State, 6'4", 247 pounds, 33.8-inch arms, so long arms, and he's only 22 and a half. I think he's a guy who has inside-outside versatility if he puts on more weight at 247. No, he's not going to be able to do that. But if he puts on more weight at the next level, I think he can. Great leverage against the run. He's not going to get out-leveraged. He's not going to get turned. He plays with great control in his hands, really understands how to control offensive linemen, shed the block, throw him away. He's a great edge setter against the run. And Arden Key is more of a pass rusher than an edge defender. He's not a very good run defender on the edge. He's a pass rusher only. So you get a guy like Isaac who's very good against the run, and that could create a good trio of edge rushers for the Titans. Good inside moves with his hands, very strong motor in pursuit. He doesn't have great bend. He doesn't have great rush moves. He doesn't have the best athleticism. But I think he's a guy who, in the 4th round, you get that run defense, you get that length, that age, you put some more weight on him, and you could have a very, very strong edge rusher, a power edge rusher to go across from Harold Landry, who's really a speed rush guy. So those are the guys who I think make sense for the Titans on day 2 or in the mid rounds. Now we got to talk about some project picks, some edge rushers who the Titans could take on day 3, who I think could develop into superstars. I always have a few in this range that I really, really like, and I can't wait to tell you about them. Before I do, though, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, I'm a competitive person. It's a fact. People know I have that competitive side, but we all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. The best part is, though, you get to mess with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. But you can also rob their vaults of all of their riches and keep them for yourself. The leaderboards also show you who has the biggest Monopoly tycoon, so you can constantly keep track of where you rank. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can also team up with your friends and people all around the world in time tournaments that earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and on Google Play. Titans fans, let's cap off today's preview of the edge rush class in the NFL draft. We've talked about the day 1, day 2 prospects. We talked about the mid-round prospects. Again, now it's time for some project picks. All right, teaser for you, or little Easter egg for you guys. If you get the reference, let me know down below. But I love some of these project edge rushers at the bottom. And I talked about one of them already when we did our mock draft recently. And it was Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA, 6'2", 247 pounds, 30.5-inch arms. Oh, gosh. And he's 23 and a half years old already. Look, with those short arms, he's a T-Rex. All right, there's no other way around it. He's a T-Rex. His arms are 2 inches shorter than anybody else that we've talked about. It's kind of insane to look at when you see it. But with those short arms, he's got an incredibly quick upper body, quick hands, great pass rush moves. He'll shoot gaps. He uses his hands to knock away things. He's just got a really quick upper body with his arms and his hands. All right, which he should at that point. The smaller the lever, the more control that you have. Good first step explosiveness. But again, those short arms, doesn't really have great bend with the short arms. He's not a great tackler. But late in the draft, 6th round, 7th round, I would love the Titans to take a chance on him because at that point, you're just getting a guy who's ready to come in and play right now at 23 and a half years old. He may have short arms, but he's going to come in right away and be a pass rusher and be able to get some things done for you one-on-one, which is important. Javon Solomon is a guy I really like out of Troy. 6 foot tall, 246 pounds, 33.8-inch arms. So he's short, but he's got great length in the arms. He's 23 years old, big hands. I mean, he has monstrous hands, okay? Great bend off the edge, which is such a rare trait. How many guys have we talked about that have good bend out of all of these guys? 2, 3 at max. So that's something that teams will take a chance on. Very good with his hand usage, with big mitts like he has. He should be good with his hand usage. He's also a guy who will shoot gaps, and he's so good in run defense. Just so good. He had 17 sacks in 2023. Now, of course, he's playing at Troy, so the competition makes you wonder. But when you're that productive, what am I worried about? The size is an issue at 6 foot, but like Muhammad Kamara, he's short. It's going to be hard to get to him for taller offensive linemen. Needs to work on his hand technique. He has strong hands, but he's got to work on technique and his pass rush moves, rushing with power, and he just is one speed all the time. Like, imagine if an MLB pitcher against an MLB batter just threw his fastball every single pitch. Even if it's fast, eventually you're going to catch up to the timing. And offensive tackles have the ability to catch up to the timing of Javon Sullivan. But if he's able to have more tempo in his rush plan, he can maybe throw off offensive tackles a little bit more. So that's something that I would look for him to improve on at the next level. My favorite project pick at the end of the draft, though, is Jalix Hunt out of Houston Christian, a former safety. He used to be a safety before converting to a linebacker and then eventually a pass rusher. Great length. He's 6'3", 250, 34.3-inch arms, 23 years old. Great athleticism, great testing numbers, great work ethic as well. He's a guy who has great football character. He's been incredibly productive in his 2 years at Houston Christian. He plays with physicality as well. With a guy who's a great athlete, sometimes they aren't super physical. Well, Jalix Hunt is physical. He doesn't have the best power, all right? He's going to need to work on strength and playing with more power. He's got to work on his rush technique, his pass rush moves, all of that. Got to get better at run defense. And, of course, he came from Houston Christian, so you have to wonder about the competition. But on day 3 of the draft, 5th round, 6th round, Titans want to take a project pick like Jalix Hunt. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. Now, there are a couple other guys that I want to mention here. Xavier Thomas from Clemson, Javonte Jean-Baptiste from Notre Dame, Nelson Caesar from Houston. All options, but I'm looking at the 7th round for any of those guys. So they could be options, but it would be late on day 3. But with that being said, that is going to wrap up my breakdown of the edge rushing class. Let me know which guys you like the best, where you're willing to take them. Would you take an edge rusher at 7 or in the 1st round? I wouldn't. And I'm going to call you crazy in the comments if you say so. But hey, let me know either way. But as always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.